गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी आतवा कुंजाबी हारी Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Bhadra Jaya Sudarshana
Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva
Jaya Radha Krishna Chandra Radha Krishna Chandra Jaya
Krishna Chandra Radha Krishna Chandra
Jaya Gauranita 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 Jaya Gauranita
Jaya Gauranita
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Ananta Dev Prahlada Simha Jaya Ananta Dev
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद् अभय चरणार विंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर श्री नवद्वीप धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। द्वारका धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर भक्त प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome for ISKCON Seshadripuram morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today is a wonderful day, auspicious day, Ekadasi. So I'm very happy to be in association with all of you wonderful devotees, and thank the management for giving me an opportunity to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam today. So today we are discussing third canto, 26th chapter, and within that verse number 28. I'll chant the verse. Yad vidurhi aniruddhakyam krishnanam adiswaram saraden divarashyamam samradhyam yogibihi shanaihi. Word by word meaning. Yat, which mind, vidur, is known, he indeed, Aniruddha Akyam, by the name Aniruddha, Rishikesham, Rishikanam, of the senses, Adishwaram, the supreme ruler, Sharada, autumnal, Indivara, like a blue lotus, Shyamam, bluish, Samradhyam, who is found, Yogi Bihi, by the yogis, Shanaihi, gradually. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The mind of the living entity is known by the name of Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses a bluish black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. He is found slowly by the yogis. The purport. The system of yoga entitles controlling the mind, and the lord of the mind is Aniruddha. It is stated that Aniruddha is four-handed with Sudarshana Chakra, conch shell, club, and lotus flower. There are 24 forms of Vishnu, each differently named. Among these 24 forms, Sankarshana, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Vasudeva are depicted very nicely in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it is stated that Aniruddha is worshipped by the yogis. Meditation upon voidness is a modern invention of the fertile brain of some speculator. Actually, the process of yoga meditation, as prescribed in this verse, should be fixed upon the form of Aniruddha. By meditating on Aniruddha, one can become free from the agitation of acceptance and rejection. When one's mind is fixed upon Aniruddha, one gradually becomes God-realized. He approaches the pure status of Krishna consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of yoga. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unnitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaurabhakta Vranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so now we will discuss this in detail. This is a very nice verse, very wonderful verse. Prabhupada has given nice commentary and also nice classes on, on these matters, what has been discussed today. So let's try to understand a little bit from what Prabhupada is educating us on. So now Prabhupada actually is, again, when Prabhupada speaks on any verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, or for that matter Bhagavad Gita, we actually get a complete idea about what is Krishna consciousness and what is the purpose of life and what is the end goal of life. He very beautifully relates everything so nicely and giving a complete meaning of that verse, in what context it has been said, why it is said, and how it is practically achievable in whatever condition that we are. So that is the absolute greatness of Srila Prabhupada. And we are ever grateful to Srila Prabhupada for his mercy on all of us. We cannot comprehend. We can say a few things, saying that, oh, Prabhupada is great, I'm very grateful and all that. But actually, we cannot realize what he has done to us. I don't know how many janmas it will take, at least for me, to understand what Prabhupada has given us. So we will try to understand a very little bit of what he has given us, whatever I could little understand. So let me start with one particular verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 12:13:1, where it is mentioned, Sutta Uvacha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutah Tanvanti Divyehi Stavair Vedair Sangha Pada Kramo Panishadair Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyana Vastita Tad Gatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yashyantam Na Vidhu Sarasuragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. The translation goes like this. Sutta Goswami said, "Unto that personality whom Brahma, Varuna, Indra, Rudra and the Maruts praise by chanting transcendental hymns and reciting the Vedas with all their corollaries, Padakramas and Upanishads, to whom the chanters of the Sama Veda always sing, whom the perfected yogis see within their minds after fixing themselves in trance and absorbing themselves within him, and whose limit can never be found by any demigod or demon. Unto that supreme personality of Godhead, I offer my humble obeisances." Very beautiful verse. And then there is one more also on similar lines, 11.5.33. Dhyayam sada paribhava gnam abhista doham tritas padam siva virinchi nutam sharanyam vrityartiham pranata pala bhavabdi potam vande mahapurushate charanara vindam. My dear Lord, you are the Mahapurusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I worship your lotus feet, which are the only eternal object of meditation. Those feet destroy the embarrassing condition of material life and freely award the greatest desire of the soul, the attainment of pure love of Godhead. My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the shelter of all holy places and of all saintly authority in the line of devotional service, and are honored by powerful demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. My Lord, you are so kind that you willingly protect all those who simply bow down to you with respect, and thus you mercifully relieve all the distress of your servants. In conclusion, my Lord, your lotus feet are actually the suitable boat for crossing over the ocean of birth and death, and therefore even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva seek their shelter at your lotus feet. So this is the most important thing, the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. And if you see here, all the demigods, like personalities from Brahma, Varuna, Indra, all of them, Yam, Brahma, Varunendra, Rudra, Marutah. So everyone is actually worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead with different corollaries, like in so many different ways they are worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Here also I mentioned Yam Brahma, and also in the second verse you will see it is mentioned Shiva Virinchi Nutam Saranyam. Shiva is, we all know Lord Shiva, and Virinchi is actually Lord Brahma. So they are basically, all of them are surrendering onto that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the position of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And we all know this in Chaitanya Charitamrita 5.142. There is a verse which says, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Bhritya Yare Yaiche Nachaya Sa Taiche Kara Nritya. Lord Krishna alone is the supreme controller and all others are his servants. They dance as he makes them do so. So this is the position of all the other demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, all of them, and they are all surrendered. We saw those two wonderful verses. And here in Chaitanya Charitamrita also is mentioned that there is only one supreme controller, Lord Sri Krishna, and everyone are his servants, and they are all actually dancing to his tunes. So now let us try to understand in this verse, Aniruddha is mentioned. So Aniruddha is actually one of the feature of the Lord, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aniruddha is one of the features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is mentioned here also, right? He says, Sankarshana, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Vasudeva. These are the primary expansions after, of course, Balaram, and the quadruple expansion we call them. And then in that, Aniruddha is a very important feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is mentioned, Aniruddha is actually the controller of the senses, right? So now we also know Hrishikesha. Hrishikesha means, Hrishika means senses. That is also mentioned in this verse which you are discussing. It is mentioned, right? Yat vidurhi aniruddhakyam Hrishikana Adishwaram. Hrishikana Adishwaram. So that Hrishika is basically the senses, and therefore the Krishna is also called as Hrishikesha. But the controlling deity of that senses is actually Aniruddha. So now the yogis naturally are actually focusing on Aniruddha, because the idea of yoga is actually to control the senses. It is mentioned, right? You know, the yoga is actually a mechanical process of controlling the senses. Like, you know, you can control the senses in different ways. Actually, when you are doing, sometimes when people, there are so many mechanical ways, right? Like, you know, if you have to de-addict it, if you are addicted to something, if you have to de-addict it, then there's a mechanical process that, you know, they put you through a regime of what to follow, how to avoid certain things, how to take certain things. There's a mechanical process of controlling that. Slowly, the person actually comes to this point of de-addiction. Like this, there are so many mechanical processes, like bodybuilding, right? You know, when we want to improve our muscle strength, then we do a mechanical process of doing some exercises. Naturally, you start seeing the results of that mechanical process. Like this, the yoga is one of the methods. Yoga is connecting to the Lord, but then to do that, there is a lot of difficulty for many people that they are not able to control their senses. Therefore, this yoga abhyasa is being given, which means it helps to control the senses. So now we all understand there is, you know, this the senses. Who's the top of the sense? Who's actually controlling these senses? Like Aniruddha is the controller of the senses. That is there, the deity who controls. But from a mechanical perspective, the immediate controller of the senses is the mind, right? That is mentioned in 3.42 in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Indriyani parani ahur indriye bhur param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddher paratastu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. That is understood. The senses are higher than the matter. Mind is higher than the senses. So the mind is the one which is above the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So in this thing, if you will hear that, you know, the mind is the one which is the immediate layer above the senses, and that mind is controlled by this feature of the Lord who is called Aniruddha. Now, so now the point is the senses are there, which is actually belonging to Aniruddha. He is the controller of the senses and he is the proprietor of the senses. That is how Prabhupada actually describes it. Aniruddha is the proprietor of the senses. So now when someone else is the owner of a property, then who is supposed to be the enjoyer of that property? Like, so for example, if you own a car, then it is naturally you are the owner of that car, and therefore you are the one who is to be enjoying that car, not me, right? If I am trying to enjoy that car, then it is actually considered criminal in one sense, and it is actually called papa, right? In spiritual terms, or in terms of understanding how we use certain things given by the Lord. So when we are using something which is given, which is owned by the Lord, and if that is not actually used in the right way as instructed by the Lord for the purpose of the Lord, then that becomes a kind of a criminal offense, and therefore we are caught up in this situation of karmic reactions, of having to suffer the repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. Now, in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.17, there's a nice verse. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So there it is mentioned, rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So that means the idea of the senses is that they are employed in the service of Rishikesha or Aniruddha. That means the senses have to be deployed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if we are not able to do that, then we are actually caught up in this miserly, we are actually trying to be very stingy. That means the purpose of all of this is for a much larger cause. But if we are simply taking that to use a simple, derive some little sense gratification, that is like using them for a very stingy purpose, right? In Bhagavad Gita, that is also there. That, one who is not able to actually do devotional service to the Lord is actually being very stingy. He is using it for all this wonderful ability of the human form. We are using it for a very limited purpose of sense gratification. But when in reality, it can be used in such a huge way, but we are very limitedly using, therefore we are very stingy, in that sense it is being mentioned. So now the objective, therefore, is to actually use the Rishika, the senses, in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that becomes perfection. Now it is mentioned in Brahma Samhita, Advaitam Achyutam Anadi Ananta Rupam Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayavvanam Cha Vedeshu Durlama Madurlabhamatma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Now, here the point again is to understand that, Krishna, he's actually got Ananta Rupam. And this Ananta Rupam is to be understood in the proper sense. So here we are seeing, right, Aniruddha. Aniruddha is a form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is actually non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and who is controlling the mind. That is much we have seen. Now this Supreme Personality of Godhead is non-different from Aniruddha, and at the same time, just because he has taken Ananta Rupam, he does not become limited. That is the other side of it we need to understand. He is Advaitam. Advaitam means what? That means there is no two different things. And he is never Achyutam, he is never deteriorated, never fallen, whichever way you take. Anadim Ananta Rupam. And Adyam Puranam. And he is still the oldest, but he is looking very young. Navai Yavvanam Cha. He is always looking like 16 or 20. That's the maximum that you can, Krishna is sage can become, he may live for so many, it may look like when he was here 25 years or whatever. That is the period he actually existed here. His physical presence was visible to us. But that doesn't mean he's like, he looked like 125-year-old with a lot of beard, white beard, and, gray hair, all that. He looked absolutely like 20-year-old. So that he's Nava Yavvanam Cha, even though he is the Purana, that means he's the oldest. Now, in there is this, to substantiate that, there is a one wonderful verse in Ishopanishad, right? Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. That means from him there could be many things which could emanate, but at the same time, that Supreme Personality of Godhead still remains intact. There is nothing that gets deteriorated. And all of these different forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are actually also are as powerful. That means 100 minus 100 is equal to 100 only. So that is the mathematics of the spiritual world. And both are equally 100. Like, that is also there. So now the point of Aniruddha, that he is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and our understanding that Krishna continues to be the ultimate source of all of these different forms of the supreme, other supreme forms that he is taking, but he is still the original source of all of these forms. These two things we need to understand. Then one of those, the forms of Vishnu is there, right? When you talk about Vishnu, it is the Chaturbhuja. That means he has got 400 forms. So now this Aniruddha is also indicated as a 400 form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when this Chaturbhuja is always defined by the Lord carrying 4 different items in his hand. That means the Shankha, Chakra, Padma and Gada. That means Shankha is that conch shell, Chakra is the Sudarshan Chakra, Padma is the lotus flower, and Gada is the club. Now, there are, here it is also mentioned 24 forms of Vishnu. So Prabhupada is explaining how do you distinguish these 24 forms of the Vishnu? Is like, all these forms of Vishnu are having 4 hands, and how do you distinguish? So Prabhupada is explaining that it starts with the right hand, the lower right hand, and then it goes to the left lower hand. Like that, the 4 hands are there, and how these Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Hasta are actually held in the different hands. By that, the different forms of Vishnus are named differently, like that. So Prabhupada is giving the example like Padmanabha, Vamana, like this he is giving many names. So these 24 forms actually are differentiated by the rotation of the various these Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Hasta and different combinations. So that is how Prabhupada explained this. So now in that, one of these forms is this Aniruddha form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we need to understand all of these different forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are all having one particular planet in the Vaikuntha. That means when we talk about Narasimhadev, Narasimhadev is a permanent feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he eternally resides in that Vaikuntha planet where he is the supreme deity. So those who are worshipping Narasimhadev, then they will go to the spiritual world, and within the spiritual world, just like in this material world, there are millions and trillions of stars. In that spiritual world, it is actually 3 times bigger than this material world. Therefore, you will see even 3 times the trillions of stars and all that. All of them are Vaikuntha planet. In each of them is presiding one form of the Lord. That is why Ananta Rupam, in Prabhupada's word, this business of expanding, it's going on. So Krishna's unlimited expansions are there, and in each of these Vaikuntha planet, that one of the unlimited forms of Krishna is the supreme deity there. And in that Vaikuntha, there is absolutely no anxiety. So this is most important. Everything actually, all of this is related to this verse. We will connect everything. In that world, there is absolutely no anxiety. That means the Supreme Lord has no anxiety. Then all the prajas, or all the wonderful devotees living in that Vaikuntha planet, they also do not have any anxiety. Now in 7.5.5, there is one verse which is quoted by Srila Prahalad Maharaj, and that is being mentioned here. Shri Prahalad Uvacha tat sadhu munye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asad grahat hitvatma patam graham andakupam vanam gato yad dharim ashrayate. Prahalad Maharaj replied, "O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest Vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavana, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." So this Vaikunta means where there is no anxiety, but in this material world, there is full of anxiety. That samudvigna dhiyam, that is the word. Sada samudvigna. Sada means always. Samudvigna means we are always in anxiety. So it doesn't matter whether you are rich, you are poor, or you are educated, not educated. That anxiety is the biggest problem or the property of this material world. So this is important. The idea of the living entity is to get out of this anxiety situation and go back to the spiritual world where there is no anxiety. Simple definition. We are always anxious. We are always anxious. What will happen next? What will happen next? What will happen next? Right? All of the, and particularly in Kali Yuga, this anxiety is becoming manifold, and because of which you will see young people are dying very fast. They are getting heart attacks. Young people are having sugar. Young people are having a lot of blood pressure, cholesterol, so many things because of anxiety. But this is I'm talking about the deterioration so quickly which can be seen in this physical body. But this anxiety is got also having so many other dimensions in terms of our existence itself, in terms of how we relate to other people, how we are able to have nice relationship with people, how we are able to use the environment around us in a nice manner to live peacefully. Because this anxiety, we want to have everything now. Like, there's no tomorrow. I want to do everything today. These kind of things which is being driven in, and these are the characteristics of the Kali Yuga, because of which we are getting degraded. But the idea is to get over this anxiety. That is what Prahalad Maharaj is saying. And he's also giving the reason that, because we are in this bodily concept of life, any person who has accepted temporary body, an extension of that is the temporary household life, is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in the dark well where there is no water, but only suffering. So one should give up this position and go to the forest Vana. What is that forest? Vrindavana. Vrindavana means physically, yes, that will be nice if all of us can go to Vrindavana. But it also means, can you remain in Krishna consciousness in whatever way you can? That is also being in Vrindavana. That is there. But that same anxiety can also be relieved being in this material world itself. Actually, we are the souls. Prabhupada is mentioning, we are Anandamaya Dhyasat, always jolly. That is the word jolly is being used. Anandamaya Dhyasat. That is the nature of the spirit soul. But why are we getting so much into this anxious situation? Right? That we need to really introspect. Why are we getting so much into this anxious situation when by nature we are actually Anandamaya Dhyasa? In 18.54, it's a verse. Brahma bhuta pasannatma na sochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labate param. Brahma bhuta prasannatma. That means the living entities are actually in that Anandamaya Abhyasa. That means they are always very blissful. One who is thus transcendently situated in the Brahma-Bhuta platform, and this Brahma-Bhuta platform is not part of the translation. One who is transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So that is the preliminary stage of Brahma Bhuta, Prasannatma. That means you actually become very jolly. And at that stage, he never laments for anything. That means there is no anxiety, right? That's what we are discussing about. He never laments or desires to have anything. There's absolutely no anxiety. Oh, when will I get this? Oh, when will I get that? Oh, when this will go away from me? There is nothing to worry about those anxieties in such a personality. But that is a person who's actually started to work in the devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1.2.20 Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge to the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. So that means one who is situated in the simple unalloyed devotional service, then he gets all positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation. In liberation means where you are not in anxiety, where you are not living in the bodily concept of life, where you are not associated therefore with the material condition surrounding us. Now, so to be in that status of anxiety-free situation, to be in one's original constitutional position of always Anandamaya Abhyasa, then the simplest solution is actually to, if you see that, surrender to the controller of the mind and employ the senses in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we do that, we actually become prasanna manaso, and we come to this platform of being blissful, joyful, a stage of liberation from all anxiety. That means come to this point of actually getting away from the birth, death, old age, and disease. So Prabhupada is saying, for that, what you do, you simply chant, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and if possible, install a deity, do worship them properly. And he says, give up all of your anarthas. Anarthas is, all the things like, in terms of our lifestyle. Stop all the nonsense of sense gratification and gratifying the mind. The object of this gratification should be the Supreme Lord, and not the object of the senses should be to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord, but not the senses of the individual, because those senses are provided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we dedicate that in the service of the Supreme Personality. The owner is the owner. Use it in the service of the owner. So he's saying, don't take it for use for gratification such as the cinemas, restaurants. You can take. There are so many anarthas that are there in our life. That I am the biggest. I need to be pampered. I need to be given all the importance. This kind of, as I was saying, this miserly, that everything relate only to the small 6 feet body or 5 feet body or 4 feet body that we have. But actually, don't be so miserly. Take it to the unlimited. Sky is the limit, they say, right? These senses can actually be used in the service of that unlimited, and therefore these senses become even more important than simply serving a small portion of what we think is the body, which is actually me, right? So that's what the idea is all about. In 11.2.42, it says, as you are actually trying to do this service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally the detachment to other things become, this anarthas go away. That is the point. Like as you fix yourself in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally our anarthas go away. See, it's like this. If you have a lot of, like a glass of water, if you have, and in that glass of water, let's say you have filled it up with muddy water. Now, you can't wish that muddy water away. There has to be process of taking the muddy water away and bringing in pure water. So simply, if you keep on adding pure water into that glass of water, as this water keeps filling in, the bad water keeps going out, right? And if you keep on doing this for some time, after like 3-4 minutes time, if you see, all of that muddy water has gone away and what remains is all pure water. So like this, if we are able to actually keep on putting a pure consciousness, Krishna consciousness into ourselves by engaging in Krishna's service, then all the anarthas which are there so much deeply embedded inside this body, is into the mind and into the intellect, because of our association with the matter from time immemorial, all of these anarthas will get flushed out by devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And we will become purer and purer and purer and purer and purer. Now that is mentioned very nicely in another Bhagavatam, verse 11.2.42. Bhaktihi pareshanubhava viraktir anyatra chaisa triya eka kalaha prabhadya manasya yata santahasyas tustir pushtihi kshud apayo anugrahasam. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously. Three things: devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. So three things. Remember this very nicely. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, that's very beautiful, right? Very Prabhupada is, that's why I keep saying, Prabhupada is so amazing. He can bring everything into one picture in one Srimad Bhagavatam verse. Purport. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord. As you are engaging in devotional service, you are actually directly experiencing the Supreme Lord. And when you are attaching to that Supreme Lord, everything else is automatically detached. That means everything else is 99% of our life is all about material engagement. That is automatically detached. And they occur simultaneously. Once you take up devotional service, naturally you are able to see the Lord, and naturally you are able to detach yourself from the anarthas. That is there. In the same way, that pleasure, nourishment and relief from hunger comes simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. How is that possible, Prabhu? Devotion, direct experience, and Supreme Lord, how will you experience it simultaneously? If you take that, how will it become, like that? The example is given also in this verse, which Prabhupada has quoted many a times. Now, when someone is so very hungry, you offer him some food. In our terms, prasadam. Now, as the person is eating, he feels satisfied. Are we able to see that his hunger is gone? How will we know? We know by his satisfaction, right? He is feeling more and more relieved. He is feeling more and more satisfied. And then later you offer him more prasadam, more food. He says, no, it's okay, it's okay. That's why it's actually said, of all the dana that you give, anna dana or prasadam dana is actually the highest in one sense, because whatever else you give dana, there is no satisfaction to the person, right? So for example, if you give me 1 lakh of rupees, I will say, no, actually I have a need for another 10 lakh of rupee. You give me that 10 lakh of rupee also, I will find a need for another 15 lakh of rupee to say, okay, this is nice. I got 11 lakh of rupee, but had I got another 10 lakh, I would have done this. So there is no end to this thing. But if you give prasadam and you give nice prasadam, many whatever nice tasty prasadam dishes, the person eats, and at some point in time you are ready to give more, but he or she is saying, hey, enough, please. This keeps happening. We try to offer them more. They say enough, please, I can't. So that means they have become fully satisfied. Like this, when we do this devotional service, then direct experience of the Lord is simultaneous and automatic, and also detachment from other things are also automatic. Okay, we may say, no, that is nice, Prabhu, it's there in Bhagavatam, I should accept it. But in my life, it is not happening. Many of us say this. In question answer sessions, we find this. Many people ask Guru Maharaj, many people ask other, Prabhupada disciples, yeah, but I'm not finding any taste. I am doing this, but I'm still having attachment to material things. How do I get over these things? See, when Bhagavatam says something, you should understand that to be perfect words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, that has to be true. The problem is, either I am not doing it with a lot of sincerity, that devotion, I'm not doing it with sincerity. Therefore, I'm not able to immediately see the result. Or I am doing it, of course, naturally, we cannot be 100% sincere because we are only, neophyte. We just start, we are trying, right? We are always trying. It all says gradually, right? Even in this verse, it says gradually he will realize Krishna. Therefore, we are trying, but we have not come to that ultimate point. But as you are trying, you will get that result. So because of our deep embedded nonsense, anarthas in us, it takes little time, but we need to have patience. That is what all the, learned, the realized person say. You need to have patience and have faith in the words of this Shastra, Guru Shadhu Shastra, have faith and practice it with sincerity, and you will start seeing. And actually, we can see a glimpse of it even if you have done it for like 5 months, 2 months, 3 months, 1 month. You will certainly see some progress. It may not be the one what we expect, but we will certainly see some progress. Therefore, as we perfect this art, there's something called perfection. We can try as hard as possible, and we will start seeing direct results for it. The idea of this is what? That means we should stop. We should detach from other things. Now, Dhruva Maharaj, right, when he had this, he had this desire that he wants to become the king. He wants to become bigger than his father, because his father because of his stepmother, so this one did not allow him to sit on his lap. And then he thought, I should become bigger than my father. And he went to the forest and he started doing penance. And his objective at that point in time was something very material, that I should become a big king, bigger than my father. I should have all these, opulence, so that people give me that respect kind of thing. But when he actually went and did this tapasya, and the Lord was pleased and he came and gave him darshan, when he saw him, he said, I now don't want all those things. I have taken darshan of you and I have got the best what I can ever get. And now these things look very small for me. That means this sense gratification or the glorification of ourselves, like I should become the king, all that has become so it's embarrassing for me to think like that. Why did I start doing this tapasya for that purpose? That is the way actually Dhruva Maharaj actually thinks. That is very important. And he says, this varam, it's this varam, I don't need this varam at all. This getting this boon, varam means boon. To get these boons is of no real significance for me. That is there. But if you really look at it, Krishna is saying, Ananyas chintayanto ma yejana paripasyate tesham nityabhiptanam yogakshemam vahamiham. Krishna is saying actually, But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. That means he is anyway giving the varam, he is giving you what you are lacking and he is actually preserving what you have. Therefore, why to separately go and ask for this varam and try to be always situated in this sense gratificatory mode and living in this anartha thing? But the idea is to come to the anartha nivritti platform. Therefore, the idea is to do devotional service and the Lord is actually taking care of them. See, now if you really see, the point is, devotees, they are not actually wanting to have any anything for themselves. They are only working for the pleasure of the Krishna. But if you look at the karmis, they are wanting to have more and more sense gratification. That means they are always looking for better things, have better missionaries, better this, better that, which will all facilitate the senses, how I can do things even more sophisticated and enjoy my senses better. The jnanis, they actually try to become one with God. By that jnana, they think how I can become God. That is there. So they also have this thing of desire of becoming God. And the yogis, they are trying to get so many mystic powers, because of which they can actually control a lot of people. They can become very popular. They can, have all of these things. But the devotee, his mode is, I don't want anything. I simply want to serve the best to the Supreme Lord. And the Lord, therefore, is thinking, oh my God, how, I can't say, oh my God, but he himself is the God. So he's thinking, oh, these devotees, how I can care for them, because they are not asking anything. Therefore, it is my responsibility to care for them. Like how a parent is actually looking at the child, right? The parent is always looking, what should I do for my child? What should I do for my child? The child may not ask, but the parent is very keen, how I can make my child nice and comfortable and all that. So the Lord is very anxious. Of course, that anxiety, what we are talking about is the material anxiety in the material world. But in Vaikuntha, he is anxious that, how I can protect these devotees who are there in this material world, how I can take care of them. So he is coming to this anxious mode, but the devotees are becoming anxious less. I am simply there to satisfy the Lord. I don't want anything for myself. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually teaching us that na danam, na janam, na sundarim, pavitavana jagadishadari. So that means he's saying, our idea is not to get name, fame, possessions, nothing. Our idea is simply to serve that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, so therefore, what we should do is, our idea of the senses is to control to the mind, and the mind should be actually completely understanding that I am the property of Aniruddha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Aniruddha is not different from Krishna that we saw. And therefore, I should completely be using all of these facilities that I have got in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and become magnanimous, not the miserly person. So, yes, but we are in this material world, we are struggling, we are not able to understand this. So what is the process? That, while I understand theoretically not to use my senses for sense gratification, I am somehow pulled into using my senses. How do I manage this? So that is also given. It said, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchyate. That means, whatever activity that we are doing can be connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna Sambandhe. That means we should, yes, I am conditioned to use my senses in gratificatory purposes, but can I slowly, this word also it's mentioned, right? Slowly, the yogis also connect to Aniruddha slowly, gradually. Like this, we gradually connect all our activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I like to eat so many things. Nice, no problem. Eat. Make it at home and eat. That means when you make it at home, you can offer it to the Lord. If you buy it from a hotel, you can't offer it to the Lord. The same thing, can you make it? Making that for Krishna, you make it like that. That Krishna Sambandha. I make this. I want to eat pizza. Oh, I want to eat this. Yes. Make nice pizza at home. Offer it to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and eat it. Slowly, by that process, we will also develop the detachment to that, the pleasure of the senses of the tongue, that, I want to eat different things. Of course, eating prasadam, it is absolute. There is absolute. Eating prasadam is absolute. There is no question of self-gratification. So the devotees, they don't live in denial. They are not meditating on the void. Oh, I should control everything. No. We are actually offering everything to the Lord, and we are enjoying with the Lord. That means the Lord is the enjoyer, and He is enjoying us. When He is enjoying, we are getting enjoyment. That is natural. Anandamaya Vyasa. That has to be there. It is not like, oh, so the Lord is enjoying us, and therefore we simply have to be like not showing any emotion. When the Lord is enjoying us, we are being enjoyed. And when we are being enjoyed, we get Anandamaya. So we are actually blissful. So the idea is to get that bliss. Therefore, when you are accepting things as prasadam of the Supreme Lord, and when we take that prasadam and say, wow, wonderful prasadam, that is not sense gratification. That is glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Wow, that bhoga which has been offered to the Lord has now become so tasty that by the touch of the Lord, and now it has become, so nice that, I am blessed when He's literally enjoying me and I am getting it. So that is the way we look at the whole thing. So it's a very simple process. It's easy to practice. And in the process, it is mentioned, we will automatically get there. No specific effect, no de-addiction program is needed. Simply do devotional service. What is that? Simply hear Srimad Bhagavatam, hear Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chant, take part in Kirtana, take some prasadam, and try to avoid anarthas or yukta vairagya. Try to put everything, connect everything in the service of the Lord. Whatever we are doing today, try to connect. And there are some things which should not be done. So we can't say, okay, therefore I'm like, in the industry, I'm basically having a mutton shop or chicken shop. I will do it as a service to Krishna. You will find Krishna mutton stall. That we don't want to do. Like, okay, he said, do all your activities as a service to Krishna. So there are some forbidden things that we should avoid. But other things which are not forbidden, we can actually do. I took the very gross one of this chicken mutton stall and all that. But there are so many subtle things, right? Some sense gratificatory things which we want to avoid. Try to avoid them, but engage in other things which are reasonably acceptable, but can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. For example, if I like to travel, I like to, drive a car, I might like to do so many things. So like, and that sense is always there to go on a holiday, vacation, whatever. Now, can you make that into a nice, like, Rath Yatra was there. Can you go to Puri? That's also traveling. That's also nice going there. But driving is also involved. Go do all that. But it is for the purpose of taking darshan of the Lord, associating with devotees. That way we can connect. Nothing is actually in these kind of things can be connected to the Lord, and it can be spiritualized. So that is the way of slowly progressing in Krishna consciousness, and a little bit of what I could understand based on what Prabhupada has spoken on, on this verse and connected verses. So I will end here. If there are any specific comments or questions, welcome. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vidura Madhava Prabhu, for a wonderful explanation. Just to, throw my thought on what you were talking about, Dhruv Maharaj. He said, oh Lord, I was actually looking for broken pieces of glass, but you've actually given me diamonds and emeralds and, very precious metals. Why do I really look at the kind of kingdom and all of that? When you've given me darshan, I think it's much, much beyond that. That's the understanding that the devotee generally has.
Thank you, Uttam Damodar Prabhu. Nice to see you. Very happy to have your association today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
It's very, very amazing. Practical things, right? Sometimes it's like that example where there's a beggar. A beggar, he's always used to eating that old food, yesterday's food. When you go, people generally give old food. I don't know, these days we don't see beggars, but in different forms. But generally they don't get the top priority of food that is cooked immediately or whatever. So they are always eating like that. But one day if someone gives them a fresh cooked food, then tomorrow when that beggar goes to any house and he gets this old food, he will say, oh my God, I have to eat this. Because he has already developed a higher taste. So right like that, we by sense gratification is that we are always experiencing lower taste. But as we experience higher taste, I think this one will become very insignificant. That Dhruva Maharaj is explained and nicely Uttam Damodar Prabhu brought. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Dandat.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hitesh Madhav, Hare Krishna.
Dandat Pranam Uttam Damodar Prabhuji also. Both of you. And all the devotees. Prabhuji, small question. We are, at least I have not heard anywhere the worship of expansions of the Lord, like Aniruddha, Pradyumna. Those expansions I have not seen, at least heard. They are recommended as a part of worship. What could be the reason, or is it that I am wrong that they are worshipped somewhere?
So here it is mentioned, right? See, Aniruddha, he is the deity for the mind, controlling the mind. Therefore, yogis actually, when they meditate on this Aniruddha form of the Lord.
Oh, okay.
So that is what is mentioned in this verse.
Okay. So they're meditated upon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Prabhuji. Thanks, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So if there is nothing more, we will close this session. Thank you all for taking time out and
Hare Krishna.
attending to this class. And
Thanks, Prabhuji.
thank you all very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we will chant one time Hare Krishna and then we will.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
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 Hare
Krishna,
Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Rama,
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 Rama.
Jai Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna. Jai Shankar Prabhu, Santosh Prabhu, Prabhu Misha Mukherjee, Prabhu Hitesh Madhav Prabhu, Vijay Goparaj Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna.